Good day, everyone, and welcome to Breaking Boundaries. I am your host, Talumba Katawala, Employer Branding Manager at Technip Energies. And on today's episode, we welcome Samantha Jones, Learning and Development Director at Technip Energies. Samantha got involved in the Technip journey in 2007 with her long management experience. She is empowered in leading the learning and development strategy of the company and growing the skills of our people worldwide. I hope to learn more about her role as an L&D director and how she breaks boundaries and influences others to do the same. Hello, Samantha. How are you feeling today?
Hello, Talumba. I'm great, thank you. And thank you very much for welcoming me to this Breaking Boundaries podcast. I'm really, really pleased to be here today.
Same sentiment here. So happy to have this conversation with you. You are our Learning and Development Director. So can you tell me a little bit more about yourself, your background, your experiences that have influenced your path, and how you got to this position today?
I suppose, Talumba, I've always been, or mostly been, working in learning and development because that's the passion that I have, and so that's where my career has taken me, and I've remained in it, and it's never got tiring. I started in learning and development over 20 years ago, actually, in the public sector, and I was in a different role in the UK, and for that job we had to go on a lot of training courses and development courses. It was quite intense. Onboarding that they had, and we would go away in residentials, and I would watch the facilitators do this training, and I just thought, that is what I want to do. And at that time, learning and development wasn't really a very formal career path. It was something that people fell into, so I needed to find my way into it, which I did in the end, and stayed in it ever since.
Oh, wow. So you didn't choose it, it somehow chose you, right?
Exactly. I think at the core of what it is that I love about my job and my profession is I love working with people, and I love the variety and that gives me, and there's just a huge range of activities you can get and get involved with in L&D.
Yeah.
And you can get very close to the business and the business strategy, which interests me hugely, and making sure that there's a really good connection between the skills we have and supporting the business that you're working in. And so, yeah, it's just a very, very interesting profession in my experience.
So you are our Learning and Development Director. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself, about your background, your schooling, your experiences that have influenced you to, kind of get to where you are today?
Yeah, so I worked in the public sector, as I mentioned, for probably about 10 years. And then I took a break because I took a break from that because I met my partner at the time. And I took an interim role as a startup manager for a new business, which was just something completely different, but helped to fill a gap while we relocated in the country. And that was a fascinating experience because I was really dealing with profit and loss for the first time, if you like, because we were really handing over cash and trying to make money, whereas in the public sector you have a different set of challenges, a different environment completely. And then I was looking for some going back into L&D. And I took on a contract role with a company called Technip, which I'd never heard of before. And I worked in the oil and gas sector, of course, which I'd never had any experience of. So when I came into that role, it was really to, with some other people, with new HR manager, with a new recruitment manager, to really help to strengthen the HR function in the offices in Aberdeen at that time. And really to redirect and from my point of view, set up the L&D function. And although I felt very comfortable with the L&D elements of that, what was less comfortable for me was just making that transition from public to private sector, and from and into oil and gas, a completely different industry. and really trying to very quickly adapt so that I could serve the business, well. So that was yeah, it was like being on a different planet for the first couple of months, trying to understand the language and what the business did, and obviously getting to know the people and who the important stakeholders were in the business. But um, I was very welcomed, I felt very welcomed, and I felt that I could really make an impact. And that's been my journey in Technip, and now into Technip Energies, of course, as we are now. Has it's always been a place where I felt very, very welcomed, but also that there is a lot to learn about the company, and being in a global environment is a very stimulating and rich environment to be in. So I'm really happy that I did make that transition.
Wow. So we could say that you didn't choose this path, the path chose you, and you kind of embraced it.
Yeah, I think that's almost I think that's almost the story of my career, actually, is opportunities presenting themselves, and then okay, I'll taking them,
Yeah,
and just I think it's not accidental, is it really? Because you have to be ready for them, so that when
right.
they do present themselves, you can take them up. But yeah, you do need to be opportunistic as well. And there's no perfect career path, is there? You spot an opportunity and you take it if you feel like it's right for you.
So of course, all of this experience that you have switching from public sector into private, and this journey that you've gone through have obviously enriched you in terms of experiences. And how has that influenced, the challenges that you face today? I mean, obviously, there's a lot of learning curves already to switch your career path. You had to start
Mm,
from a learning basis, so
yeah.
to go into a learning role, learning about the industry, as you said, the company culture, everything was new to you. So how have you used that to influence your challenges today?
Um, yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting question. I think you have to draw on all of those experiences, don't they? Whether they are things that you've done personally or professionally, to help you. I think what you're doing is developing some core behaviors and mindsets. It's not about the technical competence that you're developing and growing.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really the learning curve. It's the experience, it's the resilience you have, it's the wisdom that you gain, hopefully, so
Mm-hmm.
that you're not repeating the same mistakes more than once if you can avoid it, and that you're taking the good out of situations and learning all the time. When things go wrong and things go well, what can you take from that experience? So yeah, I think in terms of the challenges that I face in a professional basis, and looking at projects that I'm working on, then I'm really trying to draw on all of that, and to try and um, strengthen some of what I think are those core skills and mindsets that are going to help me to be successful.
So, Samantha, tell me, what is it about the Technique culture, or let's say any organization's culture, that keeps you motivated and eager to keep delivering and doing your best?
Mm-mm.
What do you appreciate about your job?
Yeah. So what I love is that I have the freedom to build a lot of the projects from scratch, and that's what I've always been able to do in learning and development. I think because it's a specialist role as well, you do get a lot of freedom to make recommendations and to often work from a completely blank page. So I think many, many, many of the most interesting and rewarding parts of my career have been where I've been very much challenged, and I've had a blank piece of paper, and we haven't really known the answer. We just know what goal we're aiming for, and that's what you need to achieve.
Yeah.
And working hard to make sure we're working on the right, what's the right end goal. And then when we got there, when we've got to that point, we know what we're looking to do, and then developing that from scratch. So I find that very yeah, very interesting to be able to do, and I love that kind of challenge. I love the ambiguity.
Mm,
Um, I really like to be able to um, take that and create something that's going to create something that's going to be really useful for our people in our company, so
right.
that because a huge part of the job I have and of the team I manage is to create and develop new learning and development programs. Okay, so
Hmm.
that we're really trying to deliver something that's at the right time in their development and it's going to help them to transition to a new role or to develop new skills or to develop new know-how or to create
Hmm.
networks in the organization. And so to be able to use that creativity to shape that and to then say, well, here we go, and then to see that really working in real life and people participating in that and getting the benefit that you hope they would, that for me is super rewarding, and that's one of the things that keeps my interest in learning and development. Um, and to be able to say, that's something that I've achieved or that the team has achieved. And we've got through that together.
Yeah.
The challenges and the high points all they all come, they're all great because at the end you're learning and growing through those experiences. So
Right.
yeah, and every project is different and they
Mm.
have different stakeholders, and so it's yeah, that's what I really really appreciate about the job. It's a complete diversity, and the opportunity to work with quite a lot of autonomy. Yes.
I know you moved at some point to Paris. How did
Yeah.
that happen? How, because I know you also have kids, so I'm looking at
Yeah.
the timeline. I remember, I
Yeah.
think you mentioned something around like 2013 or something,
Yeah.
and you would have had kids at this point. Did you
Yeah.
apply for this job? How did that happen? Did you plan on having an international career?
Not at all. So I had, as you say, I had two young children. They were 3 and 2, yeah, about 3 and 4 and 2, sorry, at the time. And I was working part-time, so I was in Aberdeen. I've been in Technique as it was for probably, I don't know, 4 years or so, 5 years. And I think I was in my comfort zone actually, Tulumba. I was like, right, okay, this is me sat. I've got young kids. I'm gonna, for the next couple of years, just
Mm.
uh, do what I'm doing, and that'll really, I'll be happy with that
That's
satisfaction.
Yeah, that's when you settle really hard, when you find the sweet
Yeah,
spot where things are
yeah,
okay and you think,
yeah,
okay, I'm not gonna change anything.
yeah, exactly. So things were good, and why change? Why change that?
Yeah.
And actually, I had a boss who kind of shook me a little bit on that and said, Samantha, I just don't know. I just don't think that you're pushing yourself and you need to get out of your comfort zone. You're in your comfort zone. And what I, well, what he said was, would you be interested in an international um, opportunity assignment? I was like, that's just the furthest thing away from my mind. Are you crazy?
You're like, I have two
The
small
idea, do you
children.
know who I am? What I have to contend with on a daily basis? How could that work?
Yeah.
And I remember speaking to my mum about it because it scared the life out of me. And she said, Samantha, I just don't see any downsides to this because the opportunity was to move to Paris. And she said, I just don't see any downsides to this. And that just gave me a little bit of extra courage, I think, that I needed to have that permission from the family as well, that they still had my back. And actually, it's not that far away from where I was.
Yeah.
And it was going to be, a fantastic life experience for me and for my family, as well as obviously the reason for being there was the career. But it's not just that. An international assignment is not just about your career and your profession. It's really about a family and a life experience. And so I was extremely fortunate, and I'll always be very,
Mm.
very, very thankful to Technip Energies for that boss that I had for really pushing me on that point. And actually, I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't know. Maybe that boss just didn't make assumptions about me, about who I
Yeah.
was, and maybe I made assumptions about me, and maybe I limited myself, but he didn't see those limitations, and so I'm very grateful to him for that.
I
Yes.
mean, your story is similar to mine. I also had
Mm,
a lot of people on the way telling me that I can and that I should. Are you crazy not to? Come on, you should have already
yeah,
had this job, you know? So that
yeah,
was a lot, for me. Yeah,
Yeah.
that was a lot of the reason why it worked for me as well, because I had these people backing me up, and of course, you know, you said it so well. The family is for emotional support, for mental.
Yes.
So it's just there's a lot that goes on to doing that. You need
Yes.
a combination of a lot of people that can give you that sort of oomph, that support
Exactly.
that you need and confidence you need to believe in yourself. So you came here with young kids. You started off you joined, I think it was the HR team, right?
Yes.
You're part of
Well,
the HR team
yeah, in Paris.
in Paris, yeah.
Yes, yes. So it was Technip University as it was then. And my role was to help to set up the leadership and management framework and some programs for the company at the time.
So new project, you coming
Yeah.
to a new country, and obviously you are, I'm not gonna say ambitious, but you are driven. You
Mm.
have projects to deliver, people to let's say, I don't want to say please, but you obviously have this new
Yeah.
opportunity. You're feeling
Yeah.
that pressure or that drive to sort of do it well. How have
Yes.
you been able to use your personal experience to better shape your role as a leading manager? Because I know that you had part-time, you have kids, you come to Paris, you're slowly progressing.
Mm.
It wasn't like from one day to the next that you were given a leadership role, but how 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 did this experience that you have shape you as a manager? How do you lead now when you in having the story that you have?
I think that flexibility is is part of is part of my a strong part of my mindset. I think that um, it's not about for me. It's not about how people do things. It's what the outcome is. And so you need to have a lot of trust in that situation, don't you? And I think because there was a lot of trust put in me. I mean, that project I had when I first came to assignment in Paris. There was a huge demand on me. Again, blank piece of paper situation. In 6 months, you join in March, and in September we want to have a brand new leadership program for future leaders. Go and do it. And so there was a huge amount of trust put in me and autonomy, but I knew that I had the support around me when I needed it. And I think that that's what I try to emulate now. I think that the leadership I saw then and throughout my career at Technip Energies, I've had a lot of really great role models in the organization. And I think it's a strong part of the 10 culture as well, to rely on people, to trust people, to have confidence, to be collaborative, to be flexible, to be outcome focused and not necessarily detail focused, which I am, um, and to um, and to create. I really hope to create an environment where people feel that they can stretch themselves and grow and go beyond what they thought they might be able to achieve for themselves. Um,
So, Samantha, is there anything that you remember from your first few weeks, first few
mm,
experiences here in Paris or in your international assignment? Is there any moments that you remember that you just cringe or that make you smile when you think back on them?
yeah, yeah, I think there's a few standout moments, I suppose. A few key learnings I took out. I think one on the high side, the highlight was through my project getting to interview the chairman at the time, Mr. Palenko, and to spend 45 minutes with him talking about leadership and talking about the leadership program that I was developing for the company at the time. Um, and that was a real privilege. And clearly there were weeks and weeks of preparation that led up to that moment, and
Oh, I can
so much
imagine.
stakeholder engagement and management that went on behind the scenes. And I learned a lot from that because I had no idea about how the corporate world works. And so that was a
Hmm.
fabulous little microcosm of how how things move in that kind of environment, at that kind of level in the organization. So that was a real highlight. And then I suppose one of the cringe moments for me was in the same project, which was, I had a deadline and I had a very, very tight deadline. And I tried to, let's say, I tried to impose a deadline on some colleagues and say, we've got to get a certain thing done by. And, and it was completely the wrong approach. And I had a very kind colleague who called me up later on in the evening after my meeting and said, look, Samantha, you might just need to rethink the way that you're managing this conversation because you have a deadline, but we all have other priorities. And so let's think again. And that was a very kind thing for that person to have done. And I
Yeah.
did rethink. And I've never forgotten that experience. I've never, ever forgotten that experience. What my priority is doesn't make it other people's priorities. And we need to achieve together. And it's not about working harder, it's working smarter. So bring people along with you and keep those relationships really, really positive and really, really constructive. It'll
Definitely.
take you a long way. Yeah.
So this brings us to our signature question. Um, so I know that it's a very open-ended question. It's quite hard to get the answer for this one. I often think about it myself when I'm asking other people. But what have you done in your personal or professional path
Mm,
that you would consider a boundary breaking moment? And how has that impacted your
yeah.
life or the lives of people around you?
Yeah. Yeah. Um, I suppose my answer would be very connected to the statement you just read from Arnaud Pieton, our CEO, about making that bridge from what we've done in the past to what we're doing next and actually what we're doing now, because the future is now, isn't it? And it's um because that for me, this is a real breaking boundaries moment in our industry. And the part I personally have to play there is around you know, helping people to acquire new skills in the energy transition. The projects we do, the products and services we deliver are going to be completely different and they are changing. We don't know what jobs are going to exist in 2030, what new roles are there going to be. And so, how can we predict that from a skills point of view and then help
Mm.
people to prepare? So now is a real breaking boundaries moment. And I've been involved in a very, very interesting project in the last 6 months to work with the business and with people and culture to look at the skills needs for the energy transition and to say, well, where are we today? Where do we want to be? And what upskilling and reskilling do we need to do? And that means that um, we'll be introducing a new 10 university in 2023 to
Wow.
really move that up a step and um, to recognize the huge shift that we're going to be making in this area. And so to be able to do that and to lead that project, for me, that's breaking new boundaries. My career has, it's another step in my career, and so I feel that that's yeah, that's my next stimulation, I suppose, and that never ends. It's always looking, as I said before, looking for those new opportunities to develop yourself, and this will be a new personal development opportunity for me, but an opportunity also to do something that's going to have a big impact on our business and the people who work with us.
Well said, Samantha. Well, okay, so core skills that are adaptable to every situation, organizations that promote, nurture,
Mm,
and include their employees,
yeah,
and people. Those
yeah,
are like some of the key things I took out of our conversation
yeah.
today.
Yeah,
People are essential for all of us. I
it's who
mean,
we
they're
are.
a
as a
person
business.
who helped you make a transformational
Yeah.
decision in your career path, gave you a vision that maybe you didn't even have of yourself. You keep doing that for other people. You're now launching a brand new project with a global reach that's
Mhm.
going to help us achieve our business goals. I mean, you're starting off the year right, Samantha. This
Yeah,
is a
I
great
know.
start for you.
I
This is
know.
2023
I
is your year.
absolutely. I'm looking forward to a little bit of a break, and I am looking forward to even more getting into 2023. It's
Ah.
going to be really very interesting indeed. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for having this conversation with us today, Samantha. Thank you for taking the time out to be with us. I know you have a busy agenda, especially this year. So
Yeah.
thank you for taking the time out and sharing a bit about your experience at Technip Energies and your own personal career path as well.
It's been my pleasure, Talumba. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, everyone, for listening today. In the future, we'll have more episodes with other inspiring people at Technip Energies and conversations on how they broke boundaries to become successful by their own means and their own definition. I hope you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, and we'll see you on the next one.